Hi guys, this tutorial is going to concern the homework that I gave you with the percents worksheet and also the rounding worksheet. Starting with the percents worksheet, I set aside a few exercises here, so lucky you if you're tuning in, you're getting a lot of exercises done with you, which is kind of an advantage for the people who are not tuning in. But I do want to start with the percents worksheet, starting with exercises numbers 1 and 2. The instructions here are to write a decimal for each percent. Now I do want to remind you, if you've forgotten, which I know you haven't because I beat you over the head with it, but that percentages mean out of 100. So when we read 89%, we could technically substitute the phrase out of 100 in there and say it's 89 out of 100. Just to point this out, I wanted to point out one important thing here, is that I didn't ask you to write it as a fraction, but if I did write this as a fraction, it would be 89 100ths. And this is important because as a decimal, here's what it would look like. And it would look like this because this is the 1 for the tenths and the hundredths. This is 89 100ths. Okay? Here's what I'd like to do. They say genius is being able to go from point A to point C without having to go through point B. So I look at this and I say, well, technically I did not write a decimal in here, but it's a whole number. It is a whole number. Excuse me. So what I want you to do is notice what happened to the decimal from the percent to its decimal notation. And you're right. The digits did not change. The decimal merely moved. So from a percent to a decimal, the general convention here is to just scooch this decimal twice to the left. I say this because I don't want to have to write this out of 100 every time as a fraction. You know, it's a waste of my time if I know what's going to happen every time anyway. So I look at number 2. It says 12 1/2%. Now what usually throws people on this is the fact that you've been given a mixed number. However, of course, we need to be, if we want to think about it a different way, thinking about this as a decimal. So 12.5% as a mixed number is very, very much the same thing as 12.5%. And this is important now because when I scooch this twice to the left, we see that this is actually 0.125, which is representative of 12 hundredths and then a half of a hundredth, or 5 thousandths, excuse me. So 12.5%. Okay. Moving on, what you're given in the next section, and I've written up exercises 9 and 11 here, are a bunch of decimals, and what they want you to do is work from the decimal back to the percent. The cool thing about it is this. If from a percent to a decimal, you're just scooching that decimal twice to the left, okay, then from the decimal back to the percent, we should be scooching the decimal twice to the right. Number one common error is that people tell me that this is 9%. Okay, this was not 9 out of 100. This is technically 9/10ths, which would be 90 hundredths. And just to demonstrate this for you, you know, I fill in a 0. We should be getting used to the fact that as decimals, we're looking at percentages 2 places out after the decimal. So this is 90%, but looking at this 90%, I'll write 90% because this is a whole number. You notice that the decimal did scooch back twice to the right. Neat thing about this is more than 100%. You might be thinking, this is weird. I don't generally see percentages like this. And you know what? Typically, you probably don't. But you know what? Scooting this back twice to the right, we have 125%. Okay? 125%, 90%. Okay. Number 21. It's been a long time since the first quarter we spent together, but I'll tell you what, we had spent a lot of time working on finding a specific amount or percent of a number. We need to recall that of, if we translate it into math speak here, of kind of means the same thing as multiply, and that's something I've mentioned several times before. But we want to take 5% times 290, and that's a quick way to do it. Now some of you that are tuning into this might say, you know what would be really easy? What if we found 10% of this? Because 10% you could just scooch the decimal once to the left. So 10% would be 29. How does 5% compare to 10%? Well, 5% is half of 10%. So technically, 5% would be half of 29 itself. Now, hey, it's good if you're thinking about it this way. I want you to do that. I'm going to encourage you to do that. However, the default method here is to take this times 290. And the hard part here is you cannot multiply by a percent symbol. It's not allowed, okay? Or actually, it's not even defined. So what we'll do is, we'll turn this into a decimal. And looking back up here, turning a percent into a decimal, we know we scooch this twice to the left. You want to be very careful that what we're taking 290 times here is 0.05, okay? If you take it times 0.5, we're taking it and finding 50% of this number, half of this number. A couple of things I want to point out are, let me move this down a little bit. There are already 2 digits to the right of a decimal. So keep in mind that when we're done multiplying, we have to move that decimal back twice. And the other thing I want you to notice is I put 290 on top, and I did this because it's going to save me, in this case, a step, because it is 1 digit longer than this other number here? Well, we might notice that 5 times 0 is 0, but 5 times 9 is 45. Carry the 4. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 4 is our 14. Things to be getting used to. We need to build in a 0 here. But you know what? Is it worth it to even do the work here if you're just going to multiply by this integer anyways? And you know the answer is no. These are going to be zeros anyway. Now to fill this out, just to prove it to you, and you know some people, they get thrown off if they don't actually write in all these zeros. So go ahead and write them in. But you know you add these up, and of course we have this 1450. But moving this decimal back twice, we determined that 5% of this number was 14.5, or you can write 14.50. Okay, so remember that when we say of, we're actually multiplying this percent as a decimal times the amount that we're looking for that percent of. Okay, now working over to the next worksheet, it concerns rounding only. I just wanted to point out a few quick things, starting with number 1. Number 1, they're asking us to round to the hundredths. I'm reminding you that I want you to be underlining the digit in the hundredth spot. You may think this seems foolish, you know, trivial, and I'm telling you, if you do this, you're guaranteeing that you're getting it right. If you're not, you're probably pretty good at these, but you're running a risk. So I look at this and I say, here's my digit that's in the hundredth spot. Now I don't really much matter or care about what that digit is. What I care about is the digit that is immediately to the right of it. And you'll always see me in class drawing an arrow to the right of this digit. But I notice this digit's a 2. Now here's our rules. If the digit is 0 to 4, then we will keep it the same. Keep the digit in question here the same. If it were 5 to 9, we would round up. Okay, in this instance, it is a 2, which is a very weak number, so what we'll do is we say that this is approximately 0.9. This 3 stays the same, and technically everything to the right becomes a 0, whether you round up or not. So, you know what, writing these 2 zeros is good practice, because 1, it shows you have understanding, and 2, whoever your audience is, because you're probably going to be doing this a lot in science class, it shows them that there were 2 digits there before you had lopped them off. You had been going out to the 10,000th spot, and that's significant. Okay, looking down at number 11, I'm bringing this up, not because we're going out to the thousands, so we have tenths, hundredths, thousands, but the fact that this is an 8, and when I round a 9 up, it becomes a 10. The weird thing here is when this becomes a 10, technically this will become the 0, we'll carry the 1, and what happens to this 9 also? It becomes a 10. So it turns into a 0, and the 1 goes here. So when we actually round this number, it becomes 0.80000. Okay? Good luck on the homework.